If you had to commit to doing something, just one thing for the next 365 days, what would that thing be? If you had to commit to doing one thing, one activity every single day for the next year, what would you do if you had to pick something right now? What would that be? What up, world? Welcome back to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. It's your host, Colin Walters, and this was the question that got thrown my way in this week's coaching call that I had. And it was not something that I was prepared to answer on the spot. This was something that was brought up on the call that we were not prepared to think about or to commit to doing. And so when our coach mentioned that he was going to do something for the next 365 days, it got my wheels turning a little bit about, okay, well, maybe this is something that I should consider doing. So then when he then proceeded to follow up that comment and his commitment with a question around who was willing to volunteer to share a 2024 goal, that's where I figured there was no better time than right now in that very moment to commit to doing something on the spot. And so if you're anything like me, maybe you got things squared away for yourself. I'm sure a lot of you do. But for me right now, the end of 2023 was pretty hectic, and we are 1 week into 2024 right now, and we are still, you know, I am still working through my 2023 reflections, 2024 goals and aspirations and things that we're working towards. And so I figured that in order to really kickstart this thing and really get these goals and objectives finalized, there was no better thing to do than commit to doing something every single day for the next year and locking down one of them on a call where we had about 45 people who were hearing my outspoken verbal public commitment. And so that thing for me that I committed to doing is writing on a LinkedIn for the next 365 days. And so that was January 3rd when I made that. So we are January 7th right now. So I think that's 5 technical days that I have written and published on LinkedIn. And this was something that was not out of the ordinary. This was not super random. It was something that writing on LinkedIn is something that I had been doing a little bit sporadically over the last year. My intentions were to write more, and I did write more. Consistently, I can't quite say that it was as consistent as I would have liked it to be, but why I want to bring this up is A, so that I can continue making my public commitment, because writing is something that I want to continue improving, and we'll get to some of the reasons why. But I really want you to start thinking about one thing that can have direct correlations and direct impact on everything else that you're looking to do in life, right? So if you could just start thinking about a couple, start thinking about things that potentially, if you want, my goal with this podcast is to hopefully convince you and encourage you to commit to doing something for a year and come and join. And I would love nothing more than for one person to reach out and say that they committed to doing something after listening to this podcast. If that person is you, text me, call me, send me a DM, send me a message, whatever you need to do, let me know. And I would love to hear it. Share it if you want. But that's what I really want you to start thinking about right now, because I'll walk you through some of the rationale for why I chose writing on LinkedIn. There's a million and one things that we can choose from to do, right? I've thought about, from the social side of things, wanting to post on Instagram. I could have chosen post on Instagram once a day, make a TikTok once a day, do a YouTube video, do a podcast every day, run a mile every day, eat greens every day, no sweets every day. Like the list is endless. Make 10 cold calls every day, send out a prospecting email. Like the list for myself is never ending, just as I'm sure it is for you, right? I'm sure there's so many things that potentially come to mind. And at some point, we just need to freaking commit. You just need to make a decision and go for it. Whether it's going to be the perfect decision or not, the worst decision is indecision. And so we all know the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now in this very moment. And so I hope that person's you. I hope that you can send a text or a call to somebody, make a commitment to yourself, right? Or let me know if that person's you. If you need to start with something that's smaller, maybe it's a week, maybe it's 30 days, maybe it's 67, where is the number that they say to form a habit. Whatever it is for you, I hope that it is 365 because that's what I committed to doing. And let me talk you through some of the reasons why I specifically chose to write and publish on LinkedIn for the next 365 days over everything else. Couple things. Number one, I want to continue becoming a more effective writer. Writing for me brings so much clarity into my thought processes. When I'm able to get things out of my head and onto paper or onto whatever note taking app I have and get things out of here, out of my head, and out into the physical manifestation of whatever it is, whether it's pen and paper or digital, that is like immediately starts bringing me so much clarity and starts forming and creating meaning behind these thoughts and ideas that are rumbling around in my head often. And so clarity is like a huge one for me, along with becoming a better writer and becoming a better communicator. I think for me that the writing that I do supports everything else that I do. It helps me articulate the ideas in my head. It helps me articulate the messages I'm trying to convey on the podcast, on a sales call, on a work call, on a in a conversation with a friend, in a conversation with a colleague, when I'm writing a LinkedIn post, when I am conducting an email, when I'm trying to outline my thoughts of, planning and executing. Writing is like the cornerstone of where, you know, a lot of my creation comes from. I mean, just look at screenwriting plays and these, famous YouTube content creators and, um, a sales script, a teleprompt, like whatever it is, the news. It's typically like everything is written right? At least in an ideated format. And there's a clear outline with things. Writing is just such a fundamental skill that for me and the things that I personally am interested in and want to do and want to keep improving on, it positively impacts everything else. It's similar to like what a keystone habit is, right? Doing that one thing for me, in this case, writing on LinkedIn every day and publishing and clicking publish and putting my thoughts and ideas out there for the world, it's going to positively impact everything else that I'm trying to do. It's going to positively impact my career, my sales, my podcast, my newsletter, my writing, the content, communication, negotiation, everything. I just firmly believe that. And granted, I'm coming up with these things in about a 20-second span of sifting through everything I need to in order to make a decision there on the spot and take a leap and commit to doing something. So I know that at the end of 365 days, 100% I'll be a better writer. I'll be a better communicator. I will be a better ideator, if that's a word, but basically creator. And I'm just like, the list is endless. And one thing that I just mentioned is I think that there is a lot of power in putting your thoughts out into the public. And so that you can continue being vulnerable and sharing your thoughts that are valuable to the world. And I think that it is something that I am continuing to go for is putting my thoughts and opinions out there. It helps me with clarity. It helps me continue putting out quality content at scale more effectively and more efficiently, especially with LinkedIn. I think that because it's such a polished professional platform, that it's going to inherently force me to become more clear in my thoughts with more quality content as well, rather than just pushing publish to publish. But putting my thoughts out there, I think is something that is scary and that is, takes a side of being vulnerable and, putting myself out for critique and criticism and differing opinions, which I think is good. I think that is good. I just read this book called The Socrates Express. Shout out my man Taylor Jacobs for the recommendation. And the book was phenomenal because in dealing with philosophy and your own thoughts and opinions, it is super important to also be very open to other ways of thinking, which is huge. And so I'm interested to see what feedback I get, where I'm challenged, where my thoughts and ideas and my own philosophies are challenged so that I can think differently and gain new perspectives and inherently connect with other individuals that share similar mindsets and are cut from the same cloth, right? So those are some of the reasons why I actually chose writing on LinkedIn. And lastly, I think just continuing to build a personal brand in this digital age that we're living in from a professional standpoint, I think is super important. And it's something that I am very intentional about is, when we were in office, that was one thing. Like I was taught early on to build my brand. What do you stand for? What do you represent? Who are you? Who do you want to be? And continue casting votes for that individual that you are wanting to become. Right. And then when we went full remote, COVID hit and a lot of things went digital. I think the same principle applies. Keep building that brand, but we have to adjust. And we need to do it in ways that are relevant to this modern day and age that we are living in. And for me, I think that is continuing to build a personal brand online. And I think LinkedIn is a phenomenal place to do that for things that I'm interested in, for where my career is with sales and business and professional coaching and all, content, and just continuing to connect with quality individuals on that platform as well. And inherently, like writing on LinkedIn, now I have so many ideas for the newsletter, for the social media platforms, for the podcast. Here we are talking about it, right? In hopes of also inspiring you to take action right now. And so here we are bringing it back to you. What did you commit to? What are you still thinking about? I encourage you to do it. I encourage you to take the leap and just freaking go for it. 2024 is here. We are already 1 week down in 2024. The clock is ticking, and so is time. And if it weren't for somebody challenging me to commit on the spot, I would not have done it. Don't wait for next week. Don't wait for the weekend. Don't wait for next month, next quarter, next year. I'm telling you right now, if you have that feeling where you're a little bit scared, you're a little bit nervous, but you also are excited about what could potentially be, just do it and let me know what you do. And I look forward to hearing about it, and I want to talk with you about it. Um, so anyways, that's what I did. If anyone's curious, that my coach actually is, he committed to sharing a form of gratitude with somebody or something each day. So that could be like a text to a friend saying thank you, a phone call to a relative saying, thank you for hosting holidays, or whatever it may be, just continuing to spread gratitude and a sense of gratefulness and appreciation. So that's what he's committing to for the 365 days. But whatever it is for you, I said, give yourself a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pull the trigger, do it. Let me know. I hope that this message finds you well. If you want to follow the LinkedIn journey, you can click the link in the show notes. You could also just Google Colin Walters LinkedIn, and I should pop up right at the first feed. Connect with me. I would love to connect with you. And I hope that everybody is having a wonderful start to 2024, or whenever you're listening to this. I understand that it's probably not, January for a lot of you listening to this. So I appreciate you tuning into the show. If you want to tune into the newsletter, link is in the description below. Reach out to me, subscribe to the newsletter, join the community of over 50 subscribers at this point in time, over 2,200, almost 2,300 on LinkedIn. And we're growing, and this is going to be an exciting year. And I know it for myself, but I also know it for you. And so I appreciate you being here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Seeds of Success podcast. I wish you a wonderful day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're at in your day, in your world. And let's go make this a phenomenal year.